Greetings and welcome to Profneel once again. It's a pleasure to have you here. The first Friday of the new year, and wishing you very many best wishes for the new year. We turn the pages back because the Indians are playing a cricket test match, the second cricket test match at Johannesburg in South Africa. So we turn the pages back to 1953, 12 years before I was born. A historic test cricket played at Ellis Park, Johannesburg. The Boxing Day test, very famous in history, and it is one of the greatest games ever played in the history of cricket. Now, every New Zealand boy has learned this story to enrapture at his mother's knee. And this is a test of a test match. The greatest, as I said earlier, the greatest ever played in South Africa, and one of the finest in the history of the game. The South Africans had beaten Australia and New Zealand in the away series. Now they're hosting New Zealand. And this test match, every human emotion that you can think of was displayed. Grit, guts, resilience, tenacity, grace. As I said, grace is always courage under pressure, and raw courage. Defiance against odds, insurmountable odds. And there was the winner of the match did not matter because the game was the winner. Both the teams were the winners. And that famous exclamation, I was there on the Boxing Day to see the Boxing Day test match, would have reverberated across generations by those who were there, fortunate to be there. Now, the first test match at Kingsmead, South Africa beat New Zealand by an innings and runs. The New Zealanders were in the hunt for a win, a test match win after 2 decades of playing test cricket. The second test at Johannesburg, the pitch was lively, and a turf and a layer of grass was added to help the South African pace attack. Now, in the New Zealand had a good pace attack, but South Africa was boosted by the arrival of Neil Adcock, a very lethal bowler, pace bowler. So, South Africa, and remember in those days, the wickets were not covered, so the wicket got the juice, and there was no one bouncer rule, there was no protective equipment like today. The bats were not as broad as they were today. So, South Africa batted first. They finished at 259 for 8 on the day 1. Now, day 2, Christmas Day Eve, would be the day when the tap of the human emotions would flow. Early in the morning, that is late night in 10 o'clock, the New Zealanders heard about a rail accident that happened at Tangiwai, the Tangiwai rail disaster. At that time in New Zealand history, the worst ever rail disaster. A passenger train went off the tracks over a bridge, and many of them died. Many passengers died in that, and among one of them was a young girl called Nerissa Lau. And how does that affect this test match? Because Nerissa Lau was the fiancée of Bob Blair, one of the youngest members of the South African team. In those days of patchy communication and not good telephone services, somehow this news came out that Nerissa Lau is gone. So Bob Blair stayed back at the hotel along with the team manager of the company, John Kerr. At the ground, the flags flew at past. The New Zealanders would have been excused for not playing this test match because they were all under a dark cloud, wondering whether any of them more would be affected. But day 2, South Africans were bowled over 271. And Rebon, the great captain that he was, tried to inspire his men to focus on the job that lay ahead, to bat. But how much he succeeded, how much he did not, that you listen to his narrative. Now, Neil Adcock had joined the team, the pace attack, lethal with his induckers. So Chappell, Chapple, the New Zealand opener, along with Rebon, opened the innings. Chappell was hit on the glove, then hit on the chest, then hit the stumps. He was declared out. Rebon was hit on the chest, but he survived. He stayed, and he played. Then he was caught on the slips. 9 for 2. The great batsman Sutcliffe joined Matt Poor. After playing just 2 balls, Sutcliffe tried to hook Neil Adcock. It hit his left ear. It split his left ear. The entire ear, the split, and the blood flowed out. He slumped to the ground there, refused medical attention, walked back to the pavilion. To instead were taken to the hospital. X-rays revealed no damage except the size, a lump the size of a fist and on his left ear. Miller, next in, scored 1, and then was hit on the chest. He spat blood. Joined Sutcliffe in the hospital. 35 for 4 as Moore hit first, then the stumps, out. So 2 batsmen in hospital, 1 Blair indisposed in the hotel, and 86 runs to follow on. And Mooney's box, the abdomen guard, was hit so bad by Adcock that got inverted and took Maglu to take a bat and to put it back in shape. And Beck got out with many runs to follow on. The crowd was quiet when they saw Miller walking out, disobeying doctor's orders. Miller walked out, but was with 40 to go to avoid follow-on, was out. The number 9, number 8, the tail enders obviously could not get that 40 runs against a fiery Neil Adcock. And in stunned disbelief, the crowds and the South African team watched a Sutcliffe walk into the ground, his head totally swathed in bandages with a red sign mark of the blood here. And his face was as white as a sheet. Of course, he's quoted as saying that I looked like a Sikh and maybe I should have carried a hockey stick instead of a bat. And I was fortified by Scotland's chief product. And I don't mean porridge. He had been dissuaded by Rebon and by the doctors. But the doctors, he just disobeyed. To Rebon, he said, sorry, Skip, we've gone too many. We are too many down for not enough. So he avoided the follow-on with number 89, living by the sword. And as number 9 got out, the South African players and Sutcliffe started walking out because Blair wasn't disposed. And the third time maybe in the test match, after Sutcliffe walked out, after Miller walked out, the crowd and the South African fielders this time were more stunned because they saw Bobblair walking out. Apparently in the hotel he was listening to the commentary and he told John Kerr, I think I can maybe help. So they took a taxi and they rushed to the ground. He was padded up and he was sent into bat. As soon as he went in, the 23,000 crowd started to applaud. Remember, it was effort 3 times and the crowd used to always applaud for the opposition. And there was not a single dry eye in the stadium. The New Zealanders were seen crying unabashedly through the glass partition of their pavilion room. As Blair walked in, the old man Sutcliffe walked up to him, put an arm around him and told him historic words, son, there is no place for you. Let's hit out, let's swing a bat and get out of here as soon as possible. That's what they did. They lived by the sword. Blair managed to hit 1-6, trying to hit another. He got out. In the meantime, Sutcliffe had reached up to 80 in even time. One of his finest knocks and his last knock in test cricket, his last innings in test cricket. And as Blair got out, the South African fielders and Sutcliffe the umpires, they allowed Blair to go out first into the pavilion. At the rope, Blair stopped and allowed Sutcliffe to go through first. But before Blair took his guard, a South African player is quoted saying as that when he passed by him at square leg, he could see tears rolling down Blair's eyes, and the South African fielders were not unmoved also. And when he took guard, Bob Blair, the youngster that he was, rubbed his eyes with his glove across his face. The defiant gesture of any young boy in the face of crisis, showing defiance. And as Bob Blair and Sutcliffe walked arm in arm into the dark tunnel of the pavilion, they left behind a light that 1,000 lectures on how to play the front foot defensive stroke could not. The South Africans had to score only 151 to get to win. It was not easy for them to win because the New Zealanders were buoyed by the fact, they were motivated by the fact that a Blair and a Sutcliffe had put on so much of resistance despite being injured, and Miller also. They made South Africa earn every run. But that match, Bob Blair and Sutcliffe, still is one of the greatest test matches in cricket and in life also. One of the greatest lessons you can learn in life from this for the new year is that no matter what the situation is, ultimately it is the size of the human heart that matters, not the protective equipment, not the covered wickets, not the helmets, not the size of the bat. It does not matter. It is the size of the human heart that matters to face the odds, to face the circumstances. If Bob Blair and Sutcliffe can do it, and Miller can do it, and if the New Zealand team could do it, so can you and I. So embrace the twist, to accept the turn. Thank you. Bye-bye.